Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 25th April 2017. The first article, silence is not an option. In this article, we'll be talking about growing vigilantism in India. Now, before getting into the article, let us understand few points. No democracy can survive without active citizen participation. Any state can become autocratic or show the tyrannical power if the citizens are not geared up towards justice. And a society's progress can be evaluated based on how it protects its minorities, how it protects the alternate views, opinions. So the protection given to these, they will determine the progress of that particular society. So at any point of time, the change, it comes from minority. What I mean is not religious minority alone. For every opinion or view, there is a minority opinion, which is an alternative opinion that makes the public debate vibrant. So, in a democracy, there has to be a way towards conflict resolution, discussion, debate, mediation of interests. It shall not be through the state's vigilantism, or it did not be through the self-proclaimed moral vigilantism. So that's what is the statement. In this context, the article states that in a democratic community, political community, every citizen owes obligation of justice to their fellow citizens. So there shall be a sense of a collective voice which has to be raised whenever the dignity and respect of the citizen is coming down. If not, the state can take away the rights of one citizen tomorrow, and the same state or the same tyranny can affect the other's life too. So that's the reason why the citizen's voice is critical for functioning of democracy and to control the powers of the state. In India today, vigilantism is on rise. So now, any form of expression, either it is news or with regard to cinema, a kind of vigilantism is visible. And food habits and cultural habits, these are also subjected to this vigilantism by self-proclaimed moral individuals. So that's what is not in accordance with our tradition and cultural values. That is what the author talks about in this article. And the next is the climate fight is global. Now you know that the President Obama was very much active in Paris Climate Change Pact, and he also has brought in the clean power plan to the United States of America in alignment with declared commitments at the Paris Climate Change Pact. According to this, the US is expected to reduce its carbon dioxide emissions by one-third by 2030 on 2005 levels. Mr. Trump is a non-believer in climate change. That's why he wanted to reverse whatever the actions taken by President Obama. But however, there is a hope because most of the countries, in spite of the reversals in US, did not move back on their intended commitments. Even China, India, none of them have moved back. Even in the United States of America, the governments, the provincial governments and the city governments, these are actively involved in promoting the alternate energies. So that's why still there is a hope to fight the climate change. And the next, a stark choice. So this is about the elections which are going on in France. So in the French elections, they are conducted in two phases. In the first phase, any candidate can contest, and the two candidates who have got the highest number of the votes will go to the second phase. For the first time in France after the establishment of the Fifth Republic, the two major parties are not fighting in the second phase. So the two major parties are Socialists and Republic Party, Conservative Republicans. So why this is happening? You know that Mr. Hollande government is the most unpopular government in France now, and the Mr. Filino, who is a conservative candidate, he is facing the corruption charges and is also thrown out. So that's why the Mr. Emmanuel Macron and then Marine Le Pen, these are getting into the second phase of the elections. So it also shows some clear divide in the French society. Mr. Emmanuel, he reflects the cosmopolitan interests of the France. On the other hand, Ms. Marine Le Pen, she is from far right, and she is talking about anti-European Union, anti-immigration, etc. So the French society's divides are clearly visible in this particular election. The best laid plans, you know that The 5-year plan has ended, and what is the replacement to this? So that's what is answered by the Niti Aayog Governing Council meet. You know that Prime Minister and all the Chief Ministers are the part of this Governing Council meet, and they have provided for 3 years action plan, 7 years strategic plan, and 15 years vision. So this is what has been proposed by Mr. Panagaria, the Niti Aayog chief. And the second is the states are expected to actively participate in achieving this vision document. And this vision is to be achieved through cooperative and competitive federalism rather than top to bottom approach of federalism. So that's what is this article talks about. And it also has described what is the vision for New India. So the New India shall consist of the universal health, universal education, and access to other material benefits. That's what has been stated. Let's go to the open-ed page. The appeasement of none. So the centrality of this article is, in India, dividing the people onto a binary as majority and minority shall end. But the most important part is how we shall define a minority. That is what has been explained in this article. TMA Pai versus Government of Karnataka case, the Supreme Court has clearly stated that a state shall be a unit to determine a minority. So if it is been followed, then obviously in Jammu and Kashmir Hindus are minority, in Punjab Hindus are minority, and Christians in most of the northeastern states they become majority. So in these circumstances, how come the center has defined the minority status? So the center has enacted, the parliament has enacted National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. Through this, it has identified certain religions as minorities. So what are they? Muslims, Christians, Parsis, Jains, Sikhs, these are being identified as the minorities. So many of the states also have passed States Minority Commissions Act, and in that they have defined the minorities in their respective states. For example, the Punjab State Minorities Commissions Act do not recognize the Hindus as the minorities. That is what is this act, this particular article talks about. Beyond getting into all these things, just remember that who are minorities, how the minorities are recognized in India, and they are not been constitutionally recognized. The constitution just has provided for the protection to cultural rights of the minorities under Article 2930 of the Constitution. But beyond that, the constitution did not define who are minorities. It was left to the parliament. The parliament has passed the law and Supreme Court has clarified on it. You need to understand these things in this particular article. And already I have discussed this particular article related to the French elections. Now let's get into the front page. I have one important news for governance, that is reinstate ousted Kerala DGP. That's what is the Supreme Court has stated. If you carefully observe, the police force need to be separated from politics. The police force only commitment shall be for rule of law and their accountability shall be to the citizens. So in this case, rule of law shall not become a casualty for whims and fancies of the changing politics of the day. So that's why the Soli Sorabji committee has recommended for fixed tenure for police officers at various levels. It also has recommended for state police board to transfer or to authorize the transfer of the police officers. And the second important recommendation is the criminal investigation and civil policing has to be separated from each other. That is law and order, criminal investigation, both need to be separated. So in this context, most of the times the police force is unable to deliver to the expectations of the citizens due to excessive political interference. That's what the Supreme Court has questioned in this particular case. Now, let's go to the world page on international affairs. So the President Obama, the former President Obama, he has come back into open and he says his life mission is to train new leaders. And World Bank and IMF, you know that these two institutions have highest investments from United States of America. Obviously, they are trying to woo the Trump government. And then European Union is very much happy with Mr. Emmanuel Macron leading the French elections. The reason is the European Union can get a shock wave if Marine Le Pen wins because she is anti-European Union, excessively nationalist and against to the immigrants. So that's why the European Union is, looking for some respite from these French elections. I can put it that way. And next is Supreme Court for broad anti-torture legislation. Now ask this question, why many of the countries are not willing to extradite criminals which India is asking for? Now the Dutch recently has rejected to give the person in Purulia arms drop case. What might be the reason? So India have death sentence. The second one is there is no anti-torture legislation in India. So in this, India is a signatory of UN Convention on Against Torture, but India did not ratify the same. So, in this context, the Supreme Court has stated that India shall have a broad anti-torture legislation. That is what has been stated. And added to that, National Human Rights Commission, it has also stated there have to be protection mechanism for the citizens against the torture by the state. As of now, any custodial deaths, these have to be reported to NHRC within 24 hours. But there is no such a provision for the torture. So that's why the Supreme Court says there has to be a broad law against to this. Now, let's revise the things. Silence is not an option. It means every country has to protect alternative views and opinions. If the state is becoming tyrannical or authoritative, the citizen has a role to play to counter the state. That is what is the central theme of this article. The climate fight is global. Here, though US is moving away or showing the signs of lack of commitment to the Paris climate change, the globe or other countries did not move away from the same. And also the cities in the United States of America and the states, they are actively supporting the alternative energies. That is what has been explained over here. So the next is, let's go for the stark choice. It is about the French elections. The first round is over. We are going into the second round. In the second round, Marine Le Pen, Emmanuel Macron, these are participating. So one is pro-Europe, the other one is anti-European Union. And the second is, one is cosmopolitan, represents the urban elite. The second one represents the rural countryside. And she is anti-immigrant and also anti-European Union. That's what has been stated. And the next is the best laid plans. The Niti Aayog has provided for 15 years vision, 7 years strategic plan and 3 years action plan for New India. And Mr. Pangaria also has defined the New India in that. The next is appeasement of none. So it is about rights of the linguistic minorities. So here the Article 29 and 30 provides for constitutional guarantees to the citizens. And added to that, the National Commission on Minorities Act also has defined who are the citizens or who are the minorities, who are the minorities. Then we need to remember the Supreme Court judgment in TMA Pai and others versus Government of Karnataka case, in which it has stated that state shall be a unit to determine the minority status. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much and all the best.